And we will see what Crit decides to play. We still got options. I think maybe something with a little bit more save than the Ricky would do them some good, because even though the Ricky ended up being a very important character, and they
Okay.
will decide to go for it, I think this time around, though, there's more agency in the rest of the lineup. Before, he was Ricky with an Enigma that also didn't want to farm or fight, with the Shadow Fiend who didn't want to fight. There was all just too many farming heroes. This time around, there's so much more activity, and LSA. There you
Mm.
go. Ricky's got a partner. He's got somebody to dance with in that mid game.
Yeah, you have a very clear and very easy setup to actually work with compared to last time where it really wasn't quite there to the same degree. So Crit should have a better time. That lane overall should look better too. But now if you're Nouns, well, do you take something for Yamsen here? You see what should be the full off lane arrayed against you. And you do have overall last pick to save for Gunner's selection if that's the route that they want to go in.
Yeah, and they're definitely going to pick up their carry here. I would be so surprised if they didn't. We don't know what Abed's going to play unless they want to flex the Lina, back and forth, even though we've seen a lot of teams not really go for it. But it is hard here. I think, like we've said before, Marcy's the interesting pick.
Okay.
And okay, they decide to go for the more classic hero into Lina. Marcy's definitely new wave. I mean, we talked to Speed yesterday. Even in the scrims, Marcy's pretty hot right now. But Terablade is your classic. You just get damage. You just have meta. You have to get a BKB and a Scotty, but you get those items, and then suddenly you win the matchup versus Lina. But you can also get so far behind. If you don't get yourself out onto those lanes, if you start getting shut up by the Lina, and if Lina ever gets an Aegis, well, that's basically lights out for Terablade. And sadly, for the hero in general, I think it's sitting at a 37% win rate.
Mm.
Many Terablades have not gotten off the ground with how farm heavy he is, and he's going to be put under a lot of pressure. That's a death prophet. Sure, once you have meta, you're able to keep her away from you, throw your snowballs at her, but then she gets level 6, she knocks down your tower, she plays against your timings just as much as you play against hers, and you play right into that play style. And even look at that. Darkseer respect ban. Love it. Shopify could just put that DP mid and they ban out for that flexibility, because that would have been a really great pick for Shopify.
Yeah, not a hero the TB wants to deal with. And, well, you outlined the potential pitfalls of the TB there, and we have seen it come up short in the past. But, as you also mentioned, if it finds the farm, compared to a Marcy, the Marcy could have gotten on the back line, punched the hell out of the Lina, take down one target, cool. If the TB finds the farm and is safely escorted into the fights, he can roll the whole team. So, higher risk, but higher potential payout as well for Nouns.
Yeah, and I am sitting here in my chair wondering what are we going to see for Mr. Gunner? Because they need a little bit more team fight. When it comes to how these fights are going to happen for Nouns, the roles are pretty much reversed. If game one was Nouns running at their opponents and forcing Shopify's hands, Shopify are going to be those activators now. And Nouns do not have an easy jump. It's where, sure, you're going to get Blink Hoof Stomp eventually from the Doom. You've got a Rubik Lift, but they need a gunner hero to make their lives a little bit easier. And I think that's going to be their last kind of ultra team fight hero. Unfortunately for them, they have to ban out Pango because Shopify will steal it from them. Nouns would love Pango, but they just don't have it in the pick order right now. And they have to draft as if this Death Prophet could be that mid laner still. And we'll see from Shopify what they pick up in their last hero here. If this choice for either Saberlight or Abed has a bit of flexibility, then they can still use that play even once their draft is completed. But we'll have to see. They got 10 seconds left. They're going to have to pick something here, even though I think it's pretty unlikely they go back around for a Saberlight hero. But let's see it. And okay, maybe they do go back for a Saberlight hero. And of course, going to shut up until they actually decide to lock in on these choices. But Snapfire offlane picked into Rubik, slight concern for Shopify, but is also just as strong a laner as the Death Prophet, especially paired with the Ricky. Just does so much damage, and even probably better versus the Terablade, because instead of having those siphons that you have to get physically close to the Terablade is going to whack you, Snapfire just slows you up and then walks away, and Gunner's Coddle, so he's looking to be annoying. And okay, Abed's on the snap. Cool.
Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, they see the Keeper of the Light, so maybe they think that the mid Snapfire is something that they can kind of get away with here, and I feel like for the most part, it should be, unless Abed just falls asleep at the wheel and takes a few too many Illuminates to the face. But It is certainly an interesting choice, because with the snap as the 2 instead of the 3 or even a support ET, you do always have that little bit of a concern. You're going to put a lot of farm into Abed's hands, because it's Abed, of course you are, but for the snap to get maximum effectiveness from her ult, you need to be further in the back. You're not going to be on the front line dishing out a lot of damage, so it'll be interesting to see how Abed balances trying to get the most out of his kisses while still staying in the middle of the fight to do his damage.
Yeah, and of course, with the coddle pickup, you surrender the lane. You say, okay, enemy mid laner, you're going to get all these creeps for free, farmed under your tower, farmed in the middle of the lane if you want to spend mana, but it is free. And the question for Shopify is, what does a free farm Snapfire do? Do we go for the Boots of Travel into the right click build? Do we play more magic oriented and get in early ags? How much can Abed abuse the fact that he doesn't have a laning opponent? It is just free farm, and how well do Shopify actually shut down the coddle in his own jungle? It's where we're going to have to see very early rotations from Crit. But the big question to me still is, what does Abed do with this heap of gold that is just going to be shoved into him? And is Snapfire the best choice for him to abuse this hero? Because certainly they go for this coddle with last pick. They go into the Snapfire or the Death Prophet matchup, probably even thinking themselves that it's going to be Saberlight on that Snapfire. But will Abed be able to abuse that net worth advantage enough? Or is it just sadly not the ideal hero? A similar situation to game one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, some interesting questions, some intriguing storylines here, and if you're Shopify Rebellion, listen, if it works, it works, but down 0-1 in a series, now is not really the time you want to have to ask yourself some of these questions, but didn't really have a choice. Circumstances dictate what they have to run here, and at the end of the day, ET, the mid Snapfire is a little bit weird, but you've got Arteezy on Lina. That has to instill at least a baseline level of confidence for your squad.
Yeah. And not just the Lina, you got the Lina with the best 5 position also in the game that's going to extend this game out a little bit longer, makes your pushes a little bit less accessible. And that's where neither your offlaner or your mid laner on Nouns are going to assist you in those pushes at all. It is all Yamsun. Terablade is the Roche damage, he's the tower damage, he's all of the physical damage. It's where there's quite a lot of roles that this Terablade is going to have to accomplish. But that's why they go for it. They have a lot of trust here in Yami, but we'll have to see. Right now, though, early trades. Again, Crit goes for the riskier bounty rune and doesn't actually get it, but regardless, 2-2 split, simple start to the game.
Mm-hmm. And if his teammates are there to secure the other 2, then why not? Give it a shot. Maybe you can sneak an extra one. If you don't, no damage done there. I mean, a little bit of damage done there. He gets hit by a decay or 2, but nothing significant in Crit. I mean, he came to this lane prepared. He has 6 tangos, so we may look to see him get maybe a little bit more active, because they can afford to. If Saberlight gets somebody with the Siphon, they just get that little bit of a slowdown, then Blink Strike in, get the slow, get the body blocks, and maybe just allow Saberlight to do a little bit more in terms of harassment.
Yeah, and this lane is still annoying. Saberlight is right back at home, getting right-clicked by Husky and dying. So much base damage that the Undying has over you. He's just going to try to create space. That's why Yamsun gets the Reflection level 1 instead of the meta. Just trying to abuse that level 1 Undying as much as you can. But we'll have to see. And in very similar fashion to game 1, see how that Ricky decides to rotate out of the lane. Because as we usually talk about with Coddle mid, Radiant Coddle is just worse. The camps are easier to access if your opponents want to make your life a little bit harder, and you don't get those double illuminates quite as easily. You have to work a little bit harder for all of that farm.
Mm-hmm. And Gunner, normally not someone who has difficulties finding that farm, though, but as you said, it's just inherently a little bit tougher, but we'll see how that plays out. For now, though, these 2 are very likely just going to play it safe, trade farm, not really let's get too aggressive here, but the side lanes have been not quite as cautious, not quite as slow, ET. You see health bars up at the top all sort of dipping down a little bit. Nobody's tried for anything concrete just yet, but they are not shy about sending out some of these early spells.
Excellent idea.
No, and especially in the top lane, lots of good harass. Fortunately for Moo, this small camp, even though if I would love to pull the lane back, he's keeping it blocked for a very good reason. Doesn't want to risk a chain lightning, a harpy spawning in that camp, and then
Mhm.
giving Doom all that kill threat that we know it gives. But it's bottom where the real fight is. Big stick pop from Saberlight, though, full wand. He crits the one in danger, and I don't know if he walks this one away. There's going to be another decay in 4 seconds, and yeah, Husky lays out, doesn't even need it, just has enough damage, and Saberlight, yeah, this guy hurts. He's going to be able to walk away, the decays are going to pop through, but yet again, that bottom lane, just a success for Nouns.
Mm-hmm. That was so unbelievably close. Yamsun was very low on HP there, but able to fall back. The meta pop is maybe one that he kind of wishes he could get back a little bit, but it got them the kill. All's well that ends well for them, and Yamsun does still need to be a little bit careful, though, because that fight starts with him dropping low, because they can do some damage to him, so while they were able to turn it their way this time, he does still need to show some respect to Saberlight.
Yeah. And they also know that this is happening. Husky, he's looking for a nice way to deny himself, but with that small camp still being blocked up by crit, it's not open. Yamsun just gets walked out of his creep wave, and Husky says, okay, maybe you do need my body. I've got a lot of HP, not very much mana, but 2 mangoes, he's going to make it work, even though he was prepared to deny himself in that situation, but the lane is just too hard with him gone, and Yamsun has to eat so much damage. At least he has his boots now, so breaking those siphons are a little bit easier until Saberlight can get his own, but still very obnoxious for the Terablade without meta. That's why they've drafted this hero.
It's kind of amazing for Husky. He's the guy who got the kill, he gets first blood, and somehow he is in the worst situation of the 4 heroes because of it, but well, that's what happens with the Undying. You spam your mana to just get in there, and well, now you don't have any, but Barrier is coming, very slowly. Some boots, some more mangoes, so he is going to be good to go in just another moment or two. Maybe crit snipes it. He does indeed, but delivery was made. Husky's got his items.
Yeah, as long as he's got the boots, it's all that matters. Now Saberlight really needs his boots, but he'll get there sooner than later. But
Fly is in a
until
rough
then,
spot here.
yeah,
Does that illuminate
and
hits? No. Okay.
rotated for the 4-minute. Try to get aggressive on the water rune, and does result in Abed most likely getting that full reset, even though Gunner's kind of gunning for a play, but isn't going to happen. And yet again, Abed gets off to a nice little early lead. It's small, but it's enough. He's been very annoying for Gunner to have to deal with. And even though Gunner's max mana, not max HP by any imagination, he's just taken so much damage. And then you'll realize that, yeah, playing Radiant Coddle, it sucks a little bit. Probably stack the large camp and work on it sooner than later. We're also seeing from Gunner, who's a travel rush, back bottom.
Yamsun gets
Well,
caught.
yeah, far up the wave. Again, just not having this small camp, you just can't bring it back near your tower. And with level 4, level 2 Siphon, just too much damage.
I mean, that's the third or fourth time that play has sort of been put onto him, and every time before he had just barely managed to walk it out, but well, every time they tried, they got closer and closer, and eventually Yamsun just flies too close to the sun, gets himself picked, but it's not the worst time for the TB to be taken down there. He's able to come back, he resets fully, and the equilibrium really didn't even get entirely out of his favor, so just going to continue to farm, and the supports are, well, up to something here. Abed is making his way over, though, seeing maybe an opportunity for the kill. Needs to be able to get the cookie. Husky unable to sidestep it, and he is going to get himself picked off. So Gunner gets a moment to sort of operate freely, but it comes at the cost of his support.
Yeah, very nicely played. Shopify are out in the lanes this time around. Saberblade's having a good lane. Abed's having a great lane, because, of course, versus the Coddle. But also, their Lena's just doing what Lena does best. Just right-clicks you. It's just very annoying. Doom is slightly more equipped to deal with it, as we always talk about, is able to fall behind, then recover quite nicely, but is also just not really shutting him down at all. TZ doesn't have the Maelstrom just yet. Of course, can't really have the Maelstrom just yet, but he is having a very nice early game so far. Everyone really is. not that same level of pressure. And Yamsun, well, bottom he's getting set up on. This is the level 6. These are the kisses. And Abed messed up. And okay, a costly mistake. Just greeted out for the scatter blast. Didn't even get the edge of it. Needed the slow. But also kisses so early that he can't break the TP. Very wise decision from Yamsun. Sure, it's a TP back to the base. That kind of hurts. But you'll walk back out and you keep your life.
It's going to be just fine there. And as you say, would have preferred to stay in the lane if he could have. But with what was coming his way, didn't feel safe. Speaking of not safe, Gunner. And they make the jump here. The cookie stun, but they are under the tower. It's going to be risky. Fairy Fire popped. Gunner, very fast with the boots of travel. And now Yamsun, who was just kind of farming in that jungle, gets a bit of a freebie. Wanders over, says, hey, Crit, what's up? And yeah, that's just a little bit of gold dropped into his pocket.
Yeah, and of course, during that rotation from Abed, the wave gets pushed in. His tower eats a little bit of damage from the creeps. You don't get to shut down the coddle. Everybody just gets back to work. This is a very nice rotation and reaction from Nouns, even though right now, Alelis is on the lamb. He's going to run down. There is no way for him to go, even though Arteezy's dragged the entire creep wave along with him. But this has allowed Moo to get a good few creep waves under his belt. He has been only creep cutting, only pulling. That's why he started to fall behind just a little bit CS-wise, but he's actually getting farm on the Doom, and more importantly, he's getting levels. So that recovery is coming. He's even going so greedy as to get the Midas before his Arcane Boots, which is a choice. It's definitely a little bit riskier, but it will allow him to catch up just even faster.
And that is the important bit there is Husky's going to get picked off in the bottom lane. He is the lowest net worth core right now, although he just surpassed Yamsun, but he was at the time. But between Devour and Midas, that does not matter. His start can be as slow as possible, and he's going to find a way to catch up there. But the Terablade, it's a little bit of a different story. He is not where he would like to be at the moment, and for now you see Yamsun farming in the jungle, but at a certain stage, Shopify Rebellion may start looking for him, and it's one thing to get pushed out of your lane. You've got some recovery there, but if you get caught in the jungle as well, then it's just kind of over as Arteezy in some trouble in the top lane. Has a TP scroll here, but he's going to try to just kind of fight his way out, recognizing, TPing away probably not viable. Moo, though, look at the dance he's doing. It's not quite enough, though. Runs out of space, and Abed does manage to track him down eventually. But they got the kill onto Arteezy, and Gunner is still here, sending out some Illuminates, operating in and around their own Tombstone. Tombstone that will now fall as Abed gets it, but because he goes for the Tombstone, there's no backup to save Crit.
Yeah, Abed basically just has to sit and watch, even though they don't want to give up this tier 1. That's why they're bringing heroes. Arteezy comes right back up top, and the Spirit form is also on CD already, so they do make a little bit of space. But more importantly, they give another core the empty mid lane, which is very nice. Give it to Moo, but allow one of their cores to recover a little bit. But they're going to still try and lay out for this tier 1 tower. And I think with the rotation out from the Snapfire, they've got it. It's an odd duo. The Undying Keeper of the Light, not known for their pushing prowess, but it just feels like a free objective. Invis Rune as well, picked up by Moo. One not scouted out by Shopify. It has to be a little bit careful, but looks like that will kind of die. Yeah, play goes down, but doesn't end up coming up with anything.
They just back themselves away. They stay safe, so Moo says, let's just keep farming. Closing in on that Midas, and they get the tower gold. Gunner, going for the urn. Urn into a Spirit Vessel, most likely to play for him, so he is going to try to be involved here. This is not just going to be Gunner farming in the jungle forever. But with that urn pickup, his Fly, oh my goodness. Fly loses a lot of health there on the Illuminate, but he does get the Overgrowth off. The Smokescreen from Crit's deployed as well, and they're going to try and turn the fight. Husky, though, he just ate a Laguna Blade, and he's fine. Gunner heals him up with the Illuminate, and yeah, that's not exactly an easy target to bring down. It does bring an end to the fight, though, and over in the middle lane, Abed able to take advantage of the fact that Lelis was alone trying to soak up some experience.
Yeah, and Abed is a monster. He's level 10, 11 minutes into the game. He's right next to Gunner in terms of both his farm and net worth, but look mid. Here comes Saberlight, and yeah, Gunner, very nicely played. Actually has that Force Staff early, is going for still the greedy build, but definitely defensive here, as, yeah, little bit of vision there. Moo gets the Doom off, but gets the Siphon off beforehand, but Lel still kisses!
Oh, that's a problem. That is a lot of damage, and that's going to be a trade-off. Offlaners go down, and Moo, well, I mean, he gives his life for the trade, but as we have repeatedly said, that's not going to matter. He's back up in 10. He's just going to go right back to getting that Devour Midas play going, and obviously, that doesn't mean you should be sacrificing him all the time, ET, but he can afford to trade himself out there because eventually he will be getting the better of that trade.
Yeah, just had a lot more to give in that fight. He dies. He's got 4 Spirit Siphons. He's got the mech. He's got the makings of Greaves. Only another 500 or 600 gold away. But they stop the push. Stop any aggression. Crit's in a dangerous spot, but is able to barely navigate around that sentry. So he gets a free TP home. But for now, as long as they keep this tier 1 healthy, as long as they keep it alive, don't let too much chip damage fall onto it, that's Nouns' ever defense. They will always have either the Rubik or the Keeper of the Light pushing out this wave, nuking it in, getting farm, getting levels. It's an objective they never really want to give over to Shopify, and they want to force almost Arteezy to be the one to come claim that after BKB, because that's a fight that really you don't want the Lina to show up to. But I can't really think of any other way for Shopify to get that objective. In the meantime, they're just farming, waiting. Nouns, though, do make a smoke, trying to get Saberlight coming back to his lane bottom, but that will get red. And that's where, sadly for Nouns, they are not very good at right now. They need Blink Dagger on Moo. They probably need a full BKB on the Doom, who is still recovering, but has his Midas, and that's going to start to tick away.
Just building themselves up slowly here. Gunner's farming, Yamson's farming, Moo is, surprise, surprise, farming. And if you're Shopify, how long do you want to let this go on? How long are you willing to wait for your items before you feel the need to start applying some pressure? Because as you said, as long as that tier 1 tower is standing, and honestly, they've got 2. The top lane also still has its tier 1, so... Oh.
Again.
Huh. Okay. A little bit awkward there, and I was going to say, actually, that's not Lelis stealing that again. He's still holding on to the original kisses that he stole before, I believe, so... They've got kisses, ET. I mean, kisses and Doom are both up.
Ooh, this is pretty nifty play, and I mean, Lelis might just kiss Roche at this rate with it going down, but with the Undying, with the meta, it's a big commitment. It's the full 5-man, but this is another free play, just pushing the limits of specifically Undying as a hero, and yeah, here you go. Lelis decides, yeah, I'm losing it. Might as well go for it anyway, and makes the Roche slightly faster, but make it a little bit more difficult to kill Gunner. Gets that buffer now, has a defensive item, but is going to be even more difficult to go down, and moves the goalposts. Shopify now don't even want to start the fight onto Gunner, which of course is going to be a problem with how much we know that this hero heals, with how obnoxious he is in those long extended fights. We're still stuck in that waiting game a little bit. The big game changer though is that Ricky has his shard. Sync that up with Abed's Ags, and then you've got a little bit of a problem now for Nouns. And if they don't shore up their side lanes, if they're not extremely careful, it's where Nouns have to very early on identify those hero pairings. Who needs to be the save in these situations? They only have 1 Force Staff right now, but if they're not careful, they get sloppy for just a second. That's where that Ricky creates those opportunities for you.
Man, Nouns are bringing quite a few heroes over towards the middle lane, and Husky does get jumped in on, but they're not able to kill him off quickly here. The Overgrowth comes in, but they do get the kill. Spitting crit into the fight, but they want on to Gunner. They want to take that Aegis out right now, and they will get it. Nouns, are you willing to go for another round of fighting? Moo has Doom, but no Blink. They just back it off, so if you're Shopify, that's perfect. Get a support kill, burn the Aegis, maybe even get this tier 1. EXO still has about a quarter duration. Saberlight's just going to try to stick it.
Oh, and this is such a nifty play, actually. And we'll see, maybe the deny comes through, and it does, but because they have the ward here, the ghosts actually seek perfectly onto the tier 1, so they get to effectively West Rack the tower, where Saberlight is just safely in the trees, fogging them, and they'll kill the ward now, but too little too late. You got the deny, but there's a big fly coming in.
Oh, jump straight in. Lula's taken down right away. Husky in some trouble again. Mortimer Kisses do some damage. Crit finishes the kill, and Shopify are starting to get the ball rolling here, ET. You mentioned they've got to sort of time that up with the Abed Zags and the dart picked up by Ricky, but so far that's back-to-back fights where it's been executed just about perfectly.
Yeah, it's where Gunner, the only man prepared to fight in this game, the rest of the lineup just needs to find that gold for those 4 staffs. The plays are just happening. It's where, like I said before, those hero pairings, you have to figure out who is capable of saving who, where you can actually play in the map, or the Ricky just picks you apart and crit. Right now, he's been traveling under quite a few sentries, so his positioning is, not too sneaky, but give this guy just a little bit of space to work with. And then it basically is just Nyx Assassin all the time with all of the setup. And he's hunting for Yamsun right now with heroes right behind him. This is where we might see that first Lina pairing here. And yeah, 2 cores. Mu, gotta be careful. It's a little bit too far, but there's an overgrowth.
They're gonna deploy it.
however, is not interested.
Yeah, I think they wanted to go in initially, and then they saw both Mu standing there and some TPs coming in under the tower, and Arteezy very wisely decides, let's not force this. At best, that's a 3v3, 3v4, so they back it off. They go back to farming. The only problem is Overgrowth does get used, but 70 seconds left on the cooldown.
Yeah, and you get that Overgrowth over to Lelis. Yeah, Rubik's got it for that next big team fight. Doesn't matter too much just yet, especially since a lot of the Shopify cores don't really care. They even keep themselves, honestly, hold still for most of the game, but still something to think about come that next team fight, that next exorcism. Even though top, well, maybe Lois doesn't even get to use it.
Double silence for a Rubik who is not quite done with his 4 staff, so yeah. The stealing of the Overgrowth does not really amount to anything there, but Shopify Rebellion continue to find some of these kills. Maybe Lelis isn't worth the highest bounty, but they are keeping Nouns on the back foot, if nothing else. The cores are farming, but the supports can't exactly do a whole lot right now.
Yeah, and then Crit flips, goes to the other side of the map, uses TP scroll, keeps his opponents guessing, and now this bottom lane is a no-go zone. Those 4 staffs are getting completed, however, so Nouns are getting a little bit more of those defensive capabilities. But here's the problem. There's Alina on the other side of the map, who has just been farming, cooking away, has not participated in anything, and Arteezy is about to have a BKB. And then this Lena's going to be on top of you. He's going to be pushing into these team fights. They've got Exorcism, and you say to yourself, if you're Nouns, is our team fight going to be good enough? Do we have enough time? Shopify are going to throw everything at our tier 2s in the next few minutes here, and we're still waiting for items like the Emsun Scotty. We're still waiting for those very expensive timings that we know TB has to wait for, and can the 4-man actually win those team fights without him? Mu almost has a BKB, which is great, which is very important for him, but still lacking a large sum of initiation. Nouns just have no real good way to get into this fight. They pretty much have to play reactively to anything Shopify want to do at this point, and we'll see if Shopify give them enough time, because we are getting there. We're getting to that point where suddenly Shopify are going to look for a team fight that they just can't lose. Their numbers are going to be too big.
Building themselves up bit by bit here, and Nouns, well, walking a little bit of a tightrope, but Gunner's still building himself up. Got the Aether Lens online. One for the Kaya next, so he is building strength, but is that going to be... well, is that going to be enough for them to really do anything? The BKB is done. On to Arteezy, so... Shopify, do they have... yeah, they've got 2 smokes up on Fly right now, so... they group up mid, they smoke up, they push out. That was a Halberd even just finished up on Saberlight, so... I mean, they can go for anyone that they want, but at this point, ET, it's less who they want and more just who they can find, because Mu is going to wander into the line of fire. They do get him with the stun there with the spit out, but Mu's got a BKB. Overgrowth, though, keeping him locked in place, and Arteezy with the DD rune just kept on firing away till they get the kill.
Yeah, and very fortunately for Nouns, there's no Roche for Shopify to go for. Them claiming it at the 16-minute mark is really paying dividends right now because that is doomsday for them. Lena within Aegis is pretty much the game at that point. It's an unlosable team fight where they just get to do basically whatever they want. But even now, this is that push. They have Exo still. They're moving in. Saberlight is trying to keep those waves in. He's letting his Lena do the brunt of the work here, but they force out Glyph, and now any push onto those tier 2s is going to force a person response. It has to be heroes now meeting the enemy team. They have to go into Shopify, and they're looking for the fight, but a fight that still is a little bit too early for Yamsun. So have to be so careful with the Terablade. Losing him early would be a disaster. And they do come up on Saberlight, but Saberlight is not your initial pick. He's not someone who's going to go down easy.
He may not go down at all. They'll finally hit him up with the Doom here, so maybe that's enough? But look at this. They still have to chase him. They're taking damage from the Ghost the whole way through. Eventually they will get it, but a lot of effort had to be expended as Husky. Burning a little bit there, but he is going to be able to walk away. And at this point, if you're Nouns, well, you would like to get a little bit more, but there really isn't any play left for them. So they back away. They save their tower. They get a kill onto the Death Prophet with Exo now down, so it's not a bad play. It's just a lot of effort required.
Yeah, and now you have to say to yourself, if you're Shopify, what can we do? Because there's no meta, there's no Doom, those extremely long abilities are now on cooldown. There's also no Spirit Form, there's no Flesh Golem, a lot of transformations on Nouns, which just means that they get to go on the aggressive. They get to move out. Somebody's going to push in bottom, and that's where they could look for a tier 2, or they look for this play top. And, well, Smoke's going to break. Lelis on the run. He's able to very nicely force staff away, but Shopify are looking for building damage right now. They still know there's 3 minutes without the Glyph. Getting Arteezy onto a tower is the main objective. Samson's courier flies to its death, very tragically, but they also stole living armor, which is maybe going to make this push a little bit more difficult, that Rubik versus Treant diff. But also, unfortunately for Nouns, Arteezy found that Grove Bow, so this is the most obnoxious version of Lena you could possibly ask for. Just absolute safety that far away.
The extra range, not fun to try and deal with, but Moo just got his hands on a Blink Dagger, so maybe you can get him into the backline for a quick jump. The problem trying to deal with the Lena here is you have to doom her basically right away, right? Because if she has her Fiery Soul stacks, dooming her is not really all that fantastic. She just keeps on right-clicking, so I don't know. Maybe that's not the target Moo wants. A similar thought process for the Death Prophet, though. We saw in that last engagement. She got the Exo out, then the Doom was applied, and eventually they were able to kill her, but it wasn't easy, so Moo really does have to be kind of the first guy in if Nouns want to make a play.
Oh, well, look at this. Very smart smoke from Nouns. The first possible Roche timer. They're going in. They're trying to get Saberlight early. Yet again.
Okay. They got it. There's a lot of knockback there onto that Death Prophet, but can they actually save her? Will they just go for the deny? Abed is actually going to use the Gobble up here, just trying to eat as much of this as possible. And that's going to be enough. Saberlight will live. Crit does end up dying, but, well, you don't take any damage when you're eaten by the Snapfire, and Saberlight survives. They're healing him up with the living armor. He's holding his Greaves, surprisingly enough, trying to get into the fight first. But will there be a fight? They're positioning. Now they're going to go. Looking to push their way forward. Yamsun does get stunned by that cookie, but the Force Staff is enough to get him into the river. And they're going to try and hold their ground here, but against that Exo ET, it's a little bit too tough. Now they're going to back themselves away. Husky and Lelis, though, should get caught. But Lelis certainly
going
win.
Further.
They go for the spit out play. Husky does end up dying. The root is going to be there onto Gunner, who does not have a BKB, so he's just got to try to run. And it looks like he is going to be able to get away. So Shopify, well, they only get 2 supports there, but Doom was used. Saberlight lives. They're going to go for Roche in the aftermath of this one, and this is a play Nouns really can't contest.
Yeah, it's not pretty. You don't have max stacks on your Lena. Your Lena doesn't have a crit stick yet either. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's fast enough, and it's free. And this is now an Aegis that Arteezy's going to be able to play around with. I think a free shard also given to the Treant, I guess, because Lena shard's pretty meh. So yeah, will get spread across, but
Hmm.
just overstayed their welcome there on Nouns. And even though they're able to get Yamsun out, and that's fantastic, he gets to respawn and pretty much immediately buy a Scotty as well, which is very nice. They don't have Tombstone, which is the big motivator for Shopify to dodge out a fight. They get kited around a little bit, and even though they get the tier 1, it's still very expensive, and it costs them Roche, which is pretty disastrous. Goes bottom. Well, Crit still creating these plays in Moo. He's going to try for it, but Fly even just says, nah, you're not getting out. Makes it an absolute kill, and they're just going to keep running at you. God Aegis, there's nothing for them to really be afraid of. It's where, unfortunately for Nouns, that issue of their entire initiation being a single blink in from your Doom is really going to start to slow you up. And now it's Shopify's turn to just push onto everything. They take your outpost, they take every single lane. Really, you'd look for Abed top, and there are heroes here to try and find him, but eventually, if they don't get him, then Abed will just go back towards bottom, and yeah, all of the waves are in right now. Shopify are getting away with playing in 3 lanes.
Mm-hmm. They're pushing on to the towers. Abed is just going to have to sort of walk it out because he didn't have his blink, but Crit back in. They might look for something, but Crit is about to walk into sentry range, and they are going to be able to jump in onto him. Lellis stole blink instead of smoke, or tricks for that matter, so a little bit of an awkward play there, but he was able to blink strike himself forward, sets up Gunner for the kill, and it's a weird play, ET, but it works out.
Yeah, and I think for Nouns, really a smart read, as Moo, they know you don't have BKB, but Arteezy greeted. Didn't LSA, now has Arteezy just killed himself twice. Well, that's BKB on the first life. If Yamson gets here in time,
They've got him.
Shopify have a problem.
How much can they do to defend? The XO is going to get popped. They do have a halberd. Abed gets in there, says get the hell out of the fight, gobbles him up and spits him out. But Rubik just stole it. And here comes the illusion. That's not illusion, that's the real Yamsun, but the aim's a little bit off, and Shopify get away with just the Aegis lost ET, but that could have been a straight throw out of Arteezy.
Yeah. Could have been his second death. He wouldn't have been able to escape the clutches of that Terablade. Just narrowly gets away. But have also given Nouns the initiative. They can go for this smoke. They've got BKB Doom. Moo is at full power. He didn't get anything forced out of him and survive that situation. Sadly, it looks like Crit is in the perfect position to maybe stop that smoke. Gunner will pop. The rest of the lineup still is making their way, though, and looking for Arteezy top. Don't know if they're going to connect, but he is sitting here. He is waiting. Arteezy himself is actually just trying to get the play going on the Kato, most likely, but both sides will decide to disengage.
And Husky gets darted near the river there, but nobody's able to make the full connection. They get some vision. They're able to clip him with 1 or 2 abilities, but not the full-on engagement, as another item pickup there. Yamsun has the Force Staff into the Hurricane Pike upgrade, so Lellis has got one, Gunner has got one, TB has got one. Boo's not picking up a blink, or excuse me, a Force Staff. That's just not happening, but they've got 3, so Crit is going to be a little bit less effective here if he does try to make that initiation happen.
Oh, not just Crit. It's the Gleipnir, it's the LSA, it's the entire combo from Snapfire. Dodge out some of Shopify's damage, and then suddenly they lose a lot of that control. It's where their best spell is by far Overgrowth when it comes to these team fights, but just haven't seen big overgrowths from Fly. We've seen, you know, the one man, the after the BKB, you know, very effective, but nothing massive. Also comes from Fly not going for the Blink Dagger early this game. Is decided to get the more defensive Force Staff, which of course has its own benefits, but has not resulted in any of those big fights. As again, Nouns get aggressive. They look for another smoke. They would love to find a pickoff of a hero coming towards top. Even finding Crit would be a pretty big win for them right now. But they're also trying to use some of their vision here before it dies. Great scan from Dire, though. Shopify just know what's going on. They're going to have to play even more cautiously in the mid lane here, but as long as Saberlight cuts this wave, then there's no pressure on their mid tier 2, so feel a little bit safer.
A little bit of an interesting choice out of Arteezy here, looking at the talent that he picked up. Went for the Spell Amp at 20 instead of the Fiery Soul upgrade, so... Well, I don't know, ET, does he feel like he just has the right-click damage right now anyway? Is this a little bit of extra nuke damage maybe helps me kill TB before Sunder comes out? What do you think?
It's really hard to say. And, a part of me just wants to be like, yeah, he's Arteezy, so he's going to do it. But he also went for the inverse build up of Lena, where he has maxed out Dragon Slave and 1 point in Light Strike Array. So, which is the old build, of course, because you just needed to cast the spell and it made sense on mid Lena. But I really don't know what's up with Arteezy this game. Something's is kind of wrong here on the typical Lena. And we'll see if it works out, but 11% spell amp is definitely a weird one. Certainly plays better with the level 25. Like, that makes complete sense, but as far as turning himself into the ultra carry, yeah, that's a little odd and gives Yamsun some more wiggle room. And Yamsun, who has 3 defensive items, is just going to look to outlast you, is becoming that monster that really Arteezy is not right now.
Just a little weird to see. He's itemizing like he's still the right-click carry, but then skill build's a little bit more nuke-oriented. But, I mean, either way, regardless, it's a lot of damage. But now Lelis, well, he's happy with this. Normally, if you steal Dragon Slave against the carry Lena, you're kind of bummed, but that's max level. He now has so much creep clear to work with, and like Rubik is realistically at this point maybe able to get a little bit of extra farm for himself, although probably not actually going to find farm because everything in this jungle is pretty much reserved for one of the cores.
Yeah, and really, all this aggression from Shopify pretty much halted as soon as they lost their Aegis. They're trying to make plays happen, they're trying to get on those side lanes, but that cleaning up that Nouns looked like they were falling into before, they just tighten up the gameplay. Nobody's really gotten picked off in what feels like 5-6 minutes. Everybody's just farming, getting ridiculously farmed, especially on Gunner, who, once he has his Hex, is going to be an insane target, somebody that you have to get on top of for Shopify, but have still been unable to clear the hurdle with just the Aghanim Scepter on Abed. And you've got a mid Snapfire. A Snapfire who is not geared up into the right-click build either, is not even going for the right-click build. He went the other 20 talent. He is all in, basically, on magic damage, without having a Kaya, without having an Blade. Everybody on Shopify is just going for kind of the weirdest of builds. Well, Sablelight's just playing Death Prop. He's like, guys, what? I mean, there's only one way to play my hero. What's happening right now? And Roche will respawn, and we'll see what the timer looks like, but a lot of initiative and a lot of item timings are syncing up for Nouns more so than Shopify. BKB just got finished on Yamsun, and it's a 15-second Roche. So this plays directly into Nouns' power spike.
They want this pretty damn bad. They do need someone to actually scout it, though. But, well, I mean, look at the position that they're in. Do they actually... Yeah, they have a smoke on Lelis. I mean, they have to be smoking. You don't all go stand and hold hands in that tree line unless you are, but that smoke pops instantly onto crit, which means they are going to just try and clean them up, and they find that kill. Oh, the gem. Yeah, now they've got 2 gems up here on Nouns. They will scout the Roche respawn. Take care of this DP illusion as well. They do need to get a little bit of vision up here. Try and control that high ground if they're really going to go for this, but... Okay. They're going to go for it anyway. Their vision is over on this other side, but ET, if there's a TP onto the outpost, they won't see it, but... At the rate that they're getting through Roche here, they may not care, but... Here comes Shopify. Pushing their way forward. They do not have crit here, but their smoke just popped. They're going to try and go for the spit play, get the card in there. And now if you're Nouns, you have a decision to make. Do you commit for Roche? The kisses are flying through. Not doing a crazy amount of damage here, but Roche is dropping. Moo makes his move. They're going to get in. They get the stun, they get the doom. Death Prophet in some trouble. Teammates aside. Yeah, we don't actually want to be in there after all. So, Saberlight effectively sacrificed, but I don't know. Didn't seem like they were going to be able to do too much more than that. Husky, though, did get picked off. A little bit too far to the south. Runs right into Arteezy, but that's more than worth it. For the Aegis, for the cheese. And Nouns, not quite a net worth edge just yet, ET, but they've wiped out their deficit.
Yeah, they get an Aegis onto Terablade. It isn't the fastest Roche because Yamson's still looking for a crit, but once he has it, he can just chunk through anybody, everybody, really. And Arteezy, looking at him top for
Oh, the
going, and there you
refresher.
have it.
Well, this is a problem. Can they defend? Can they save him? They get the spit out play, but he didn't hold it long enough. Last time Abed was able to hold his teammate in there until the Doom had lost enough duration. That was not the case this time around, so he still burns on Arteezy. And that is a disastrous play for Shopify. 70 seconds with no Lina, no buyback available. Tier 2 tower gets taken. Yamson still has half duration on meta and an Aegis, so let's go take a poke. Kick the tires on the tier 3 perhaps, but yeah, the creep wave not cooperating. Gunner even force staffing the lead one just to try and get it up there faster.
Yeah, still have another 15 seconds of meta. They know that there's no exorcism. They're really just looking for Glyph. I don't think an all-out push is really the objective here, especially if they lose their Aegis, but it's coming. It's here. Yamson's getting healed up. The fact that he doesn't have any lifesteal doesn't really matter. Even decide to just go for the easier objectives. Once they have that Glyph, now every outer tower for Shopify is going to be at risk. Shopify have to check themselves a little bit. They need to get Saberlight into these fights. They need to also find a way to separate him from Moo. Moo's just settled for a Doom on the Death Prophet, who's presenting himself every single time, and it just feels like the right decision. Because when Saberlight gets doomed, neither Abed nor Arteezy really get into the fight. They still get shoved aside, and then they say, oh, well, our Death Prophet's dead. I guess we're not going to team fight. And then a team fight win never ends up happening for Shopify. Even though, of course, fighting into Aegis is almost never a good idea, it just feels like something's got to change. Because Yamson, he's got a DD rune, he's got met up in 15 seconds. Nouns have no reason to peel back. They're just going to keep running at you.
They smoke up. They're making their way out of there. 30 seconds for Doom, though, so that is something that they're going to have to do without here. But the scan did reveal heroes. They're going to try and move. They've got crit. Quick and easy kill right away. Yamsun's in on to fly as well. That overgrowth comes out. But is it really enough to matter? It's so late into the fight. Abed as well. He's channeling out the kisses, but the damage just is not focused onto anyone. He does drop Lelis a little bit low, but at this point that damage really doesn't matter. And if you're Shopify, do you want to try a second attempt here? You exo for a little while longer as Saberlight just jumps in. That is a very risky play, but it does get them the kill. Moo goes down. The TB is now going to get disarmed. They go for the spit up play to stun him up as well, and they do get through his first life. Moo, seeing the danger, has to buy back, but they need to be able to push up here. Their Terablade is in trouble. He doesn't have a BKB. They're going to try to force staff him. Does he get the Sunder off? Yes, he does. Swapping HP bars with Saberlight. Just getting bounced around this fight. Disarmed again, but Moo found his target. Jumped in. Doom onto Lina. That Lina, though, is doing a lot of damage, but it will not be enough. Gunner from the back line fires the Illuminate in to heal everybody up. And Nouns eventually managed to hold the... hold the line, Gunner. A little bit too far forward there, but he's able to pull it back. And Nouns, they win the fight, ET, but I don't know. A buyback from Moo had to be used. Your Aegis gets taken away. Still very costly.
Yeah. Not the win that they were looking for. And now they can't afford to lose Moo. If he dies, the game is going to look very impossible for them. But it's still a win. They still get more pressure. They get more net worth. They get more power into Yamsun. And you got to see in that fight, Arteezy finally decided to become that turret, just sat there, did the damage, and things died very, very quickly. But they also lost control. They lost the ability to keep that Terablade down. I think as well, just being in the night, it's very difficult to keep track of where the Terablade is in the tree line. So you give the Sunder, there's just too many force staffs on Nouns. And they also have this problem where Gunner's got to die. You have to find him. He's getting so many spells off in every single fight. The Ethereal Blade kites the entirety of Lina after her BKB. It's where that Satanic is so important, or finding a Flicker, anything to dispel. It's just so obnoxious, and they're not finding him. So you either find Gunner at the beginning of the fight, you find Gunner at all, or you have to deal with a Terablade that has another 1700 HP because he's just constantly healed from Illuminate.
And now, a Terablade who has his Satanic online. So you killed him once. That was impressive, but now effectively you're going to have to take him down 2 or 3 times with his own health, with the Sunder, with the Illuminate, with the Satanic to just bail him out and dispel. I don't know. And it's still so very much down to Arteezy to do pretty much all this damage. Abed's progression is just not here anymore. We already talked about it earlier. He did not opt to go for that right-click build, but at a certain point, his magic damage, his burst potential has plateaued.
Yeah, and he's annoying, surely, in these team fights. He's deathless as well. They haven't really decided to jump the Snapfire in any of these team fights, but it's just hard to execute. You need to snap cookie somebody in. You need to gobble up and throw somebody in. You need somebody to play with you at all times. And sadly for Shopify, it's usually Fire or Crit that end up getting thrown into team fights that they just can't really survive in for very much longer. That fight, Crit had to use his buyback just because he dies so darn early. It's where, unfortunately, there's a lot of net worth, there's a lot of great gold here on the Snapfire, but it's just not as effective as what Gunner's able to do on Coddle. The items are just what makes it OP, the cast range, the healing. It just feels like Gunner is playing a better version of what Abed could possibly do. And I still think it's a mistake for him not going into the right-click build, but probably just thought that Arteezy had it covered. And Arteezy is still getting farmed. He's still playing Lena. He is still terrifying, and he has a full Satanic now. But if he buys it out, there's no buyback. And it's in that scary realm where this game could end on a dime. If you die without buyback right now on your side of the map, the game's just over for Shopify.
Got it. Okay, so there's your sort of win objective if you're Nouns. Although, they have yet to see him with the Satanic, so they do not know yet, but it is going to be a very risky couple of minutes here for Shopify. The other side of things, Moo, he just got the Octarine Core a moment or two ago, so he's got some more CDR to work with, and obviously just the pure stats coming in for him as well. 3k HP, fair bit of armor, so I mean, you can't find Gunner easily because he is all the way in the back, and the other two cores you would love to hit up are unbelievably difficult to actually kill and keep down, so if you're Shopify Rebellion, where's the vulnerability, AT? Where is the weak point for them to try and put pressure on?
And that is the question again. Oh my god, these roach spawns. 10 seconds. And Arteezy spearheading this smoke and will break it.
They're on the Gunner. But there's the telekinesis to pull him back. Fly did not catch him with that overgrowth either, so now the fight's going to break out. Yamsun holding his ground, dishing out the damage. Lena dropped low, Lena taken down. Arteezy gone for 90 seconds, no buyback available, but the kisses are still hitting onto the TB. The Exo Spirits are doing some work as well, but can they actually take him down? Even with the silence on him, he's still holding his ground. He needs to find a Sunder target. They haven't been able to get onto him, though, and Yamsun's just going to heal off of his own teammate. Lelis just says, take my health and keep the fight going, and now if you're Shopify, you've just got to run, but they cannot make it out in one piece. Fly gets caught. Crit will look to TP home. He makes it away, but in the process of pushing forward, Nouns scouted out that exceptionally fast Roche timer. Aegis, Cheese, a Shard, and an Aghanim's Blessing all available. So at this point, ET, they're going to get this. They're going to get it for free. And Shopify better start fortifying the high ground as best as they can.
Yeah, and their lanes are in. They're shoving. As soon as they kill this Roche, they're just running up, and you've got 40 seconds without Alina still. Without Alina buyback, they're just going to march their way onto the high ground. At the very least, look for Glyph, but this is free Ags. Probably want to give it over to Moo. I can only imagine. Maybe spread the level a little bit, but I feel like that's your best one, and I guess they just give it to Gunner, which, of course, is Will-O-Wisp, one we don't get to see very often, but is just another team fight tool, another thing to kite around. And now, paired up with your Undying, who hasn't really had too many great tombstones this game because he's, well, playing versus Lena Snapfire. Well, it's another thing to hit. It creates space. It's another target. And there's your Glyph. Sure, your Lena's able to respawn, but Nouns are just going to take the entire map now. They're looking for the win.
Yep, someone's got a Swift Blink as well, so just gets up there, takes the tower. And now the meta's going to get popped. They're looking for the racks. Tombstone thrown down here early as well, just to make sure Shopify don't get any ideas about trying to push their way in. Arteezy gets a Lincoln Sphere popped. A second one's put onto him. That one's popped as well. And now, well, the Hex is deployed. Arteezy has to back up, which means the middle lane of racks will be finished off in its entirety. And Nouns, do they swing for more? They're still all 5 up, but not gonna risk it. Yamsun had about a fourth of the duration of meta, but decides to TP bot instead, deal with this creep wave pushing in, and of course they do have this play. They're going to recall him immediately, and now they're going to look for the fight. They jump in on the fly. They're able to hex him up. Not taking him down just yet. He is lasting a long time, but Saberlight was hit by the Doom. So while the Exo is running ET, he's not going to be able to get anything else out in this engagement, and now the Will-O-Wisp comes in. It's immediately killed by Arteezy, but speaking of kills, Saberlight does go down, and now they got the stun. Lina locked down, Moo refreshes the Doom, goes in for the lockdown. Abed firing away from the backline with the kisses, but that's not going to be enough. He's got to get the spit out play, but he doesn't actually get it in time. Tried to push forward, not able to catch his teammate, and now it's all going to fall apart. They're getting run back to their own fountain. Abed will make it. Crit, though, obviously will not. Double kill for Gunner, buyback immediately from that Ricky. But buyback for what? There's no Lina. There's no DP. They just aren't going to be able to mount a defense.
No,
there's the
not
GG.
enough time, and there you go.
Ooh.
Nouns 2-0 Shopify. They keep the streak alive. They keep lossless in this upper bracket, and they've 2-0'd their way directly into the grand finals. Nouns are just on fire.
Playing at, frankly, the highest level we have seen from them since this version of the lineup has been put together, which honestly is saying something, right? Because they did not look too shabby on the DPC either. Just came up that little bit short of making it to the major. And I mean, ET, I mentioned it at the very start of this series, that loss that they suffered to Shopify ended up being the difference between them making the major and obviously having to watch from home. And you get the feeling that they kind of remembered that Shopify had been the gatekeepers, had been the squad that kept them from Lima, and they had to work for it. They had to mount the comeback. You can see the graph here. They were trailing for a lot of that game, but once the momentum shifted, you could kind of feel it in the air. It was not going back Shopify's way.
Yeah, and there certainly are some peculiarities here. There's the oddness in the Lina build. There's the strangeness in Abed, who ends the game deathless, funnily enough. But there's also the mistake of that second Aegis, of losing it so early, killing any of Shopify's momentum, and then suddenly the Terablade and the Lina are on even footing. And even though it's a wishy-washy matchup, it's one that can really go either way depending on how much net worth your heroes have, how much time you have with your Aegis. You lose that upward spike. You lose that easy incline into those pushes, and then Shopify really just never get back onto the horse. And of course, for a lot of that game, Moo just shut down anything Saberlight was trying to do. And then you realize, okay, now it's all Arteezy. Okay, Arteezy's not feeling confident enough to stay in these fights. Who else is our frontline? We don't have frontline. We've got 2 backline supports. We've got a Saberlight who's dead, and we've got Abed who's also in that backline trio, chucking his supports in suicidally in some of these situations. It just ends up being another draft issue. And I think at the end of the day, it's a great coddle pick from Nouns. It does exactly what they want. But Gunner was literally just the better style. He played exactly what Abed tried to do on the Snapfire, but it's just more effective. It's just easier to play. And every initiation from Nouns also goes off without a hitch past 30 minutes. Every single Linken's pop. It felt like Arteezy didn't have a Linken's, because every single time Gunner's there with the Solar Bind, with something, with a Force Staff, with an aggressive Hex, just to make sure that Doom lands. And it does. And you don't have enough saves. You don't have enough time. And Nouns get to 2-0 Shopify. I'm just in shock. Love for the boys, though. Great win.
I mean, yeah, just to sort of bring it back to that one last point you said for Moo, I mean, he never bought, there's no, you can see, there's no refresher orb here. That was shards that he was making those plays with. But in that final fight, against 2 Linken Spheres, he got a Doom on both Saberlight and Arteezy. That should not be possible, but Nouns knew exactly what they needed to do. And then all of these Force Staffs that they bought earlier to deal with crit ET suddenly become offensive weapons, right? Pop the Linken's for free with the Force Staff, and the rest of the damage dealers just push in and do the job. So I don't know. And unfortunately, I also want to say Abed on the snap did fall into the exact scenario that I was sort of afraid of in the draft. As a core, he couldn't go for the right-click build, right? Or felt like he couldn't, because you do your maximum damage with your kisses, with Gobble Up and Spit Out. But unfortunately, that leaves Lena on the front line, that leaves Saberlight on the front line, and they were not tanky enough to actually do that job.
Yeah, and it's so niche. It's where Nouns, and of course, you can tell because Nouns picked Radiant when it come to
Mm.
their selection into the matchup. They were not looking for this call at the beginning. There's no way you go for that side with the Keeper of the Light, but it's so reactive, it's so flexible, and that's really the theme, I think, of this series and why Nouns were able to take this 2-0, where they moved around. They have the answers to Shopify, who didn't budge. They're the monster. They're the big dog in this situation. But because they don't adapt nearly as quickly, Nouns just have these niche picks. They have these workarounds, and they force you into a really bad play style. And for a little bit there, Shopify look like they're going to take it. It looks like they have what they need. Yet again, I think Crit, you've got to highlight him as kind of the MVP for Shopify, who's just obnoxious. He's exactly where he needs. But then 20 minutes into the game, Nouns get into the rhythm of things. They know what they're playing against. They get the ob sentries down. They know that Crit likes to flip the map. And once they match that tempo, they are on par with Shopify. And that's why I think they get this 2-0. They finally get that accustomed to their opponents. And I mean, it speaks for itself. They're grand finals, baby.
Mm-hmm. They are in the grand finals, and in the grand finals with a still intact winning streak, still 0 losses for this team. So, of the teams that are left, Shopify, Beast Coast, 5 Rat, none of them really want to deal with Nouns right now. They are as hot as we have ever seen this squad. But somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to try and challenge them. So we shall see who that is going to be. Still waiting to see if we get an interview here with Nouns, but while we are working on that behind the scenes, we are going to step away here and try to get you set up for that next series. We're headed down to the lower bracket ET. 5 Rat 4 Staff versus Beast Coast is going to be that next matchup. So, yeah, we'll get ready for that. If there is an interview, we'll have that coming your way. If not, we'll let you know. And we are getting ready for that second best of 3 in just a little bit. So stick around, and we'll be back.